Do you guys think Rolex will outperform the stock market in the upcoming years? The answer may shock you. Stay tuned to find out. If you guys have been paying attention recently to the Rolex prices in say the last maybe 4 or 5 years, you've noticed that the prices have gone absolutely bananas. From vintage to modern Rolexes, everything is just exploding. Everything is increasing year by year. Now, some investors may say, that's an anomaly. That won't happen that often. Well, we have some data here today to prove that it may not be that much of an anomaly after all. So guys, if you actually Google Rolex versus stocks, the first article that comes up is by CRM Jewelers that was written in 2014. In that article, we take a look at the Rolex Explorer 1016 reference. That specific model was chosen because it was written in a New York article at the time. Now, this particular reference was used in a famous ad back in the day, and the watch back then, in the 60s, ran for around $195 retail. So now we have data from that period to around 2014. So about a 48-year period of data. Going by this 48-year period, the watch, for that 48 years of time, got a return around 7 to 10%. Whereas we look at the S&P, it was probably around 9.6%. Assuming that these numbers, the original numbers, retail and all that bottom end price, high end price are correct. After looking at this article, I got very interested in the history and return of this watch. So I decided to dig deeper and look into the pricing of that, look into that 5,000 kind of bottom end price they gave at the time. Now, the Rolex Explorer is one of my favorite Rolexes. We actually have a modern one here just to show you guys. But yeah, we want to get into basically the specifics of what this watch, actually can return to technically an investor. The problem with that original article, in my opinion, is that the pricing was a little bit conservative. So today in 2020, we looked at Chrono 24, which most people consider is an accurate place to look at prices for watches. We looked at this model range from around 64 to 66 for the Explorer 1. And let me tell you guys, the numbers are pretty big. I mean, they're ranging from 19,000 to 30,000, depending on box, paper, condition, all that stuff. So there's definitely a big increase there. Now, before we mentioned a 7 to 10% return in that 2014 article. But now, if we look at the numbers we have today, it's more of an 8.7 to 9.68% return. And the market actually did around 9.7. So right there, that tells you that there's definitely a comparison between the watch and the S&P 500. For the Rolex, we mentioned a variation of around 8.7 to 9.68. And in the market, it's around 9.7. So technically the market is higher, but is it technically better? Every good investor knows that there's risk with every investment. So we got to figure out what's riskier. So what we did was we went to Google Charts and we pulled out the oldest data we could find, which dates back to around 2004 for the search history for Rolex. And at the end of the day, there's something you guys have to think about. When you invest in the stock market, there's a lot of factors into that. There's, how well the company's doing, who's the CEO, how the shareholders reacting. There's a bunch of different factors. Where with the Rolex, typically if you have the boxing papers, you wear it every now and then, and you're very cautious with it, and it doesn't get stolen, your investment is pretty safe. So that is something to really consider. But we like to kind of throw numbers out there. So let's break down the risk. If you look at the Rolex, it had a standard deviation of around 12.7. which is pretty low. When you looked at S&P 500, it had a deviation of around 642.3. Now, if we put it in percentage terms, the Rolex has a 22% risk rate, where the S&P 500 is 37%. So you could say technically the S&P 500 is a higher return, but a little bit. But the risk is just completely, it's way worse on the S&P 500. So it's something to consider. Any real money manager knows that risk definitely plays a big factor when you go into investing. Now, a lot of you are probably wondering, how do I get in on this? 1966 is way gone. Well, guys, I have some modern Rolexes here that I think are good investments that could kind of follow the same route that this 1966 Explorer did. First watch I have here on my right, which I mentioned earlier in the video to compare to the original Explorer from 1966, is a modern Rolex Explorer 1. Now, these go for around $7,000, and this reference is 214270. The second watch I have on my right is the Rolex Submariner Date. Now, this particular model is the reference 116610LN, and they go for around $11,500. The Rolex Submariner Date, to me, is kind of like the Apple stock. It's kind of that one company that always goes up over time. So this is a piece that if you want to have one watch, you buy it, you can literally wear with a suit, wear it in any sporty occasion, and it won't be out of place. And it will gradually go up in price over time, no matter what. Third and final watch I have on my right is the Rolex GMT Master 2. Now this particular reference is the 16710 BLNR. And now these particularly go for $15,500. If you kind of go back in time, the retail fee was around $9,000, and that's what really they were trading for. But now in 2020, they're trading for $15,500, and that's increased. In the past, around 2 years ago, they're more in the 12 to 13 range, depending on box condition. So prices are going up, guys. So a lot of people don't actually think about watches as being an investment, but based off the data we showed you guys here today, clearly there's a correlation between investing in watches and getting a decent return. So that's something that people have to start looking into. And this is, we chose Rolex today because it's the most popular brand and there's the most data on it. But if you look at other brands, maybe like Patek, there are some examples from there that also could go up in value. So at the end of the day, buy the right watch and you'll make some money on it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. We're gonna try to grow this channel to 100,000 subscribers as fast as possible.